All right, hey everybody, welcome to Lakeside Pro Bass today. Just going to talk some ice safety. It's going to be very informal, so if anybody has any questions, feel free to speak up at the time. Don't hesitate to interrupt. Ask questions while you're thinking about them, so they don't get forgotten. But as we're coming into ice season, the number one thing we need to worry about is ice safety. Fishing's great, but at the end of the day, we all have to make sure we make it home to our families. So we definitely want to do what we do safely out there. A little bit about myself: I started ice fishing around 30 years ago, and early on we really didn't know much about safety. There's not a tremendous amount of information around here, and the ice in Ohio can be sketchy at best at times. So early on, I'll admit I went swimming a few times, but within the last 10 years or so, I really got serious into it. You have families now, and you take things a little more seriously. So with the lack of information and the lack of knowledge on ice safety, I thought it was just something that was kind of something that I wanted to learn about myself, and then pass it on to others, just to make it to where we can all get back home safely. So I'm going to start out. We'll talk about the gear that we use to stay safe. Then we're going to move into what happens if we are to have an unfortunate incident of a fall through, and we'll just move on to there. And like I said, if you have any questions along the way, feel free to stop me, answer questions, and if I'm not talking loud enough in the back there, if you can't hear anything, just tell me, and I'll raise my voice. Set these back here behind me. So probably the most important tool that you'll have in your arsenal for checking ice is what we call a spud bar. And it's basically just a steel bar with a chisel end, and these are different weights, and everybody does them differently. So you just got to kind of learn, use it, experience it, and figure out what works best for you. But basically, what we're going to do with this is when we're getting out on the ice, even before I step away from the shore, because a lot of times shore ice is real sketchy from the warmth of the ground. You might have great ice once you get 5 or 6 feet from shore, but close to shore, sometimes the ice just isn't very good. So before I even walk out on it, I'll give two strikes, and I'll feel the way the bar reacts to that ice. The report that comes back to me will tell me right away how hard my ice is and how thick it is. So if I hit the ice and the tip kind of wants to stick in the ice, or if I notice any type of seepage from below, water coming up, I know it's not a good spot. So, but generally, if I can hit it, give two good solid hits, and and the ice shards come off real nice and clean. The ice looks nice and clear, doesn't stick, no water. I'll go a couple more steps, bang, bang, couple more steps, bang, bang. A lot of variables in what causes ice to form. You've got current, underwater springs, waterfowl. There's all kinds of variables that go on to what causes a lake to form ice, and it's rarely ever consistent. So just because you've got good ice where you're at, don't assume that it's always going to continue to be good. Continue to spud wherever you're going. Always spud, because we've been in situations where we've been on 7 to 9 inches of ice, go 50 feet away, and you're lucky to have 1.5 inches, 2 inches of ice. And like I said, it could be from current, could be from waterfowl that's kept that ice open for a longer period than the main body. The way wind comes across, there's a lot of different variables. So just always spud and be cautious of your ice conditions. And one of the reasons why I don't like ice reports is you might go out and fish an area and say, hey, this was really great. If I go to that area and I think, well, hey man, this guy was out there and he did really good, said the ice was great, I might only be 15, 20 feet from where he was, and the ice could be crap. So take ice reports with a grain of salt. Check your own ice. You're responsible for your own safety. The next thing that's super important is neck spikes. And we've got some extras here. I want to pass these around. But what these basically are is they go around your neck, but they've got spikes on them. And so if in the event of a fall through, these things will enable you to get grip on the ice, because once that ice is wet, you're not going to be able to not easily climb back up with your hands. These things are really important to try and help you get back out of the ice. The other thing I like to carry with me is a whistle. When you're out and you're trying to signal people, a whistle, you can blow a whistle all day long, but if you're yelling, once your voice gets hoarse, it's harder. So a whistle is a really good distress signal. It's good about getting people's attention. So, and the other thing you want to do is look for a whistle that doesn't have the P in it. A lot of people overlook that, but the old metal whistles that had that little cork ball inside there, they call that a P. Once those freeze, they don't work. So So get yourself a what they'll call a pee-free whistle. And these work even if they get wet. I like to carry a throw bag. Throw bag is rope. It's not necessarily something that I'm going to use to help myself, but somebody that I'm with or just a random person falls through, I can get up there and throw them I hang on to the tag end, throw them the bag, and that right there gives us something that we can pull them back to safety without getting into a situation where we may fall through that weak ice where they were just at. So a throw bag is really important. Now, most of the injuries related to ice fishing, people might think are from fall throughs. Actually, most of your more serious injuries, ice fishing related, are from slips and falls. People slip, fall, break elbows, break shoulders, get concussions. A lot of injuries from falls. So having cleats on your feet of some sort, those are really, really important to keep from falling down and getting hurt. A lot of different styles of them. If you're especially on ice that doesn't have any snow whatsoever, it can be difficult to walk. You want to avoid falling. So, because that's your number, like I said, number one injury is falls. So we've got all of our safety gear. Did I miss anything? You guys have any questions at this point? No, good to go. The one last thing I did miss. I always carry a dry bag, and in this dry bag, I carry a wool blanket. So, in the event of a fall through, first thing you want to do is, once you get that person out, is get those wet clothes off of them and get them in something dry. Well, I could fill this thing up with clothes for me to wear, but me being, as small and petite as I am, my clothes probably aren't going to fit somebody that's say Nate's size. But so what I carry is a wool blanket in here because that'll fit anybody. I'm 5'8" and 200 pounds. If you get a guy that's 6'4" and 280, he's not wearing my clothes. Might be able to wear my socks, might be able to wear my gloves, but he's not sure not wearing my pants. So I carry a wool blanket. We get that clothes stripped off of them, wrap them up in that wool blanket, and they're already starting to get them warmed up. The other thing is this dry bag. Actually, you can trap air in it, and you could throw it to somebody and use it as a little bit of a flotation device to buy some time. So now that we've got all that out of the way, let's talk about what happens if you actually experience a cold water immersion or a fall through. So what's the first thing that's going to happen to you? Does anybody have any idea what happens to your body? Well, hypothermia comes, you're going to gasp. Okay. What that gasp is called is cold shock response. Has anybody, and I'm sure we all have had a cold cup of water thrown on them in the summertime. Okay. So, you gasp for air. And what happens during that gasp is your respirations increase, your blood pressure increases, a whole lot of things happen to your body. So in the event of a fall through, that's the first thing that happens. Your blood pressure is going up, you're breathing hard. Cold shock response will go away on its own in a few minutes. But time is of the essence in the event of a fall through. So the first thing you want to do is really work, concentrate, mitigate that cold shock response. And by controlling your breathing, you can actually mitigate that cold shock response down to about 30 seconds. So that's your number one thing you got to do is get calmed down, don't panic, and get your breathing under control. So once I've done that, I want to face the direction that I was coming from. What would be a good reason why if I'm walking out and I fall through the ice, why would I want to turn around and go back in the direction I was coming from?
But the ice that back behind you is what you just walked.
Right. So the ice that I walked on got me in this situation. The ice that I'm on got me in a bad situation. So continuing to go forward, it could be good. I could continue forward, but there's a good chance it's bad. So I'm going to turn around and I'm going to go back the way I was coming from because I know that ice was good enough to get me there. So once I get turned around, I'll take my neck spikes. I'm going to pop these apart, and then I'm going to get my body as horizontal as I possibly can by kicking my legs, and I'm going to claw with these neck spikes and get myself back up onto the ice shelf. And I'm not going to stand up right away. I'm going to stay low to the ground. Okay. I don't want to stand up. I want to stay low, either roll, crawl, do whatever you got to do, but get away from that hole going back the direction you were coming. Okay. So when you're in the water, your clothes are actually helping insulate you. So while you're in the water, your clothes are helping you. Once you're out of the water, your clothes aren't helping you anymore. They're robbing heat from your body. So once you're out, and that's where that blanket comes in. Get those clothes off, get yourself wrapped up, get dried off, and then get to a warm vehicle, get in some sort of shelter, and get yourself dried out and then start warming up. So once you're in the water, say you can't get out. Okay. Say you're in the water, time, everything's on a schedule here. We got to get out as quickly as possible. And say you can't, the next step that's going to start happening to you is you're going to experience what we call cold incapacitation. So what happens is it's a survival mechanism of your body. It stops sending blood to your extremities because it's trying to protect your core heat. And in doing so, it starts constricting your vessels and your artery system and your extremities. And that's part of the reason why your blood pressure will increase so much. And also you start to lose the dexterity in your fingers, your legs, everything. So it's imperative to get out of that water before that starts to happen because you'll get into a situation where you can't even help rescuers help you. I mean, you're just going to be a bobber in there. Once you get to that point, you're really in a tough situation because it's hard to get people out of water when they're in that. So mitigate that breathing, get yourself controlled, get out as quickly as possible, get dried off. So, any questions? I for a base layer, I always wear wool. Wool insulates even when it's wet. I've got wool socks on. Everything, all my base layer is wool. What I wear outside is these are float suits, and if you can do it, I highly recommend it. The bibs, the jacket, these float suits will save your life, and they keep you extremely warm and comfortable in the process. They're super warm, but they're buoyant and they'll keep you at the surface in the event of a fall through. So great question. Any other questions like that? I also wear a boot that I can actually slide off really easy. You see guys out there wearing bib overhauls and work boots, and that stuff can be really detrimental. It gets heavy. You can't get out of it. So, you got to be mindful of your attire because the clothes that you're wearing can actually be a detriment in the case of those getting saturated with water and full. I wear big insulated rubber boots that, if I have to, I can slip out of them easy, so they're not like anchors. But great question. Any other questions so far? All right. You guys are stellar students. So then, like I said, say you got somebody that's also been severe hypothermic. They've been in the water too long. Finally, get them out. You have to be really cautious with that person because you can actually cause them to go into cardiac arrest if you make their muscles work too much, and the later stages of hypothermia. If you cause that blood to pump through their core, that cold blood can actually start a cardiac arrest. So if you've got somebody that's severe hypothermic, try to keep them from moving. Put them on a sled, pull them off the ice, get them to emergency responders. Get them to where you can start to, they can start to warm up, but just don't let them exercise. And then even after people, are starting to come back around, they have to be really careful that they don't, still don't pass out, fall, hit their heads and such. So, but no, that kind of wraps up a lot of what we like to talk about, just the basics of ice safety. And if anybody has any questions or anything that you might not have been comfortable to ask in the group, just grab me, and I'll be happy to go over anything with you that you might be unclear on. So, I'd like to thank everybody and appreciate you coming out.